This is Dan Dix here, reporting for Press for Truth. We are here in beautiful Acapulco at the 2017 Anarchapulco, and I am joined right now by Sterlin Luxan. He has just finished giving his talk here at the conference, and I want to get your opinion as, you know, as an anarchist in the movement, seeing what's been going on with the current divide of the left-right, the so-called tolerant left, and the so-called alt-right, who are now clashing with one another at unbelievable ends, escalating to the point of violence. What's your thought of the current state of the left-right paradigm, especially under Trump?
Yeah, sure, Dan. Thank you for asking that question. What I think really is happening, especially over the course of the last few months and during the election, we've had finally a reaction to the rampant identity politics on the left. We've had a reaction to a lot of different individuals who are really starting to trump up anti-proprietarian ethics. They're starting to trump up gender politics, feminism, etc. And what's happened with that element of political correctness is we've started to see an alternate reaction or a counter-reaction by individuals who have more right-leaning inclinations. And I like to refer to it as a kind of patriotic correctness. So this counter-reaction has formed up in the vein of patriotic correctness, and these individuals who have right-leaning mentalities have started to come into the fray and condemn the leftists. So it's a reaction against the leftists, but they've taken it to an extreme where it's based on this alarmist mentality that the West is going to be overrun by Islamic individuals, it's going to be overrun by the identity politicians and leftists. So it's a natural tribalistic type of scene where it's just two groups of people who now have an inability to communicate openly with each other and can't come to terms with their belief systems, with their economic ideas. But in my mind, what's got to happen is these individuals have to be able to come to terms with each other. They have to be able to at least cooperate to some degree, because they're going to have to live together regardless of what their actual belief systems are. And what I've seen is really sad, and what that is a lot of them on both sides don't even want to communicate with each other. And I've actually asked people, especially on the alt-right, well, what is the logical conclusion of not trying to work together with these individuals? And that logical conclusion, and they admitted it, and they said it's just open warfare. So this breakdown and this growth, or the breakdown of communication and this growth of both of these movements splintering off and dividing and staying divided, is actually a recipe for absolute and total disaster, possible totalitarianism, and possible warfare.
So how do we bridge that gap and get these guys to understand the divide that's happening here, and the fact that they're looking to the same end game? They want the same thing, essentially, in the sense that they don't want to be controlled anymore. It's just, I guess, a difference of opinions on how that goes about being done. So what sort of advice would you have, or how can we bridge that gap in order for people to hopefully work together to a common goal?
Right, yeah, that's a really great question. And I would say just let's use relational anarchism. Let's use the tools in our tool belt of being able to relate and connect to each other. I think both of these individuals have to understand that there's never, ever going to be a whole group of individuals that agree with them. People are always going to have economic differences, and I think the best way to handle this issue is for them to start open up the channels of communication a little bit more, get an understanding of what the other people want, have a recognition of unmet needs, and use what we refer to as nonviolent communication, make those connections, and I think they can come to terms with their differences, and then they can be able to exist. And this is also what should happen in an environment when the state finally is able to vanish, or the state is abolished. People are always going to have these kind of economic differences, so we have to figure out how we're going to solve these problems sans the state. And so open communication, compassion, relational anarchism, this to me is the pathway to success. This is how we're going to bridge these gaps. This is how we're going to ice over any of these nasty feelings that have started to crop up and exist. So.
Do you get the sense at all that Donald Trump has kind of created a populist movement of nationalists who are supporting the state in order to solve the problems of the state? You know, is there a bit of an oxymoron there where we have to look outside of the government, maybe, or not look to the government to solve the problems of the government?
Right, that's right. One of the things that Donald Trump and his administration and his election has been really good at is propagating the fear mentality, creating these alarmist politics that a lot of politicians would be actually very happy to support, even if they act like they're upset by it, because the anarchist, it splinters off the anarchist movement. Anyone who has any kind of residual fear inside themselves are naturally going to be turned on to this alt-right movement. So Trump, in this vein, has been a huge success for the stature of the state, for the state's ability to remain consolidated and the power consolidated, because now the anarchists are being heavily divided, and we always know that statists, that politicians, that fucking ruler kings will enact a divide and conquer strategy in order to pit the working class, the populist class, against one another, and that way it's very difficult to try to bring down the state, very difficult to combat the situation. So what needs to happen, what we just talked about, is there needs to be open communication. We need to understand that we're always going to have differences, and we shouldn't fall prey to this fear-mongering that these individuals are, especially the politicians, are starting to allow to take place.
Agreed. Well said. It's all kind of order out of chaos, really, is what they're trying to achieve. So they're creating the divide and conquer in order to try to achieve their base ends. But for anybody who's watching, never seen you on Press for Truth before, where can they find more information from you?
Sure, Dan. You can go to psychologic-anarchist on Facebook. I have 43,000 followers, so you guys can all come there and find me. My personal Facebook page is Sterlin Luxan, Luxan, and I constantly post updated content on there. I have a website, psychologic-anarchist.com, where I try to produce as much written content as I can. On YouTube, you can find me at psychologic-anarchist as well. And more recently, me and a few other individuals have created a compassionate anarchy group where we're trying to manifest these relational circles, and it's growing extremely fast. We have 5,000 very active members, so come on and join us, have some fun, and be relational.
Awesome. Nicely done. Building community at the grassroots. That's where it's at. Thanks so much for talking to us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dan. Much appreciated.